Hi. Yes, welcome to number 3 of Fuse 8 TV. So far, we've learned a lot in our time since we've begun doing Fuse 8 TV, which is to say I have learned a lot. I have learned that videos don't work at all in the Google Hangout format. So remember the first 2 of these I did. Number 1, I believe I did a lovely little video with Travis Jonker where we had a conversation in books. It was very herky-jerky the entire time, which was nothing compared to the herky-jerkiness of the second video, which was the tour of the Eric Carle Museum. So today, I have learned my lesson, and we're not going to begin with a video today. We're going to begin with me talking to you, telling you about something that's really neat, and using slides, the wonders of slide technology. It's going to be so 1998. It's going to be fantastic. First and foremost, though, I want to apologize to you because you are going to see a wonder of modern technology that you will never see anywhere else. I yesterday did an interview with Kidlit TV, which will be up in the next couple weeks or so. That was lovely, but they had a makeup artist on hand, so you're going to see for the very first time they put eye makeup on me, and that's never happened before. So enjoy it while you can, because apparently I can't get it off. So that's fun. Meantime, I would like to tell you that we are going to have a very special guest a little later in, author Jennifer Niven, whose latest book, All the Bright Places, is actually getting a lot of fantastic buzz, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about that. But before we do, I would like to tell you a little something about an exhibit that is going on here in New York City. And this is an exhibit that you only are going to have a chance to see for a very, very brief amount of time. Now, most exhibits in the city last for quite some time. This one is an exception. It is the Grolier Club's 100 books famous in children's literature. Now, the Grolier Club, should you wish to know what this institution actually is, it is America's quote-unquote oldest, 1884, society for book lovers and graphic arts fans, offering displays and events, which is to say their events are free. You can see them for free. And one of these is their regular 100 books exhibit. They do these quite regularly. For the first time, they're doing one on children's books, as you can see from this incredibly fuzzy photograph taken on my phone at the opening reception. If you peer above the very white heads right there, you can see it says 100 books famous in children's literature. Now, this is an exhibition that presents 100 famous children's books printed in the last 400 years, from 1600 to 2000. Now, pay attention to the following quote, because it is very important. In this exhibition, the books are those deemed famous because, I should go back because you don't want to see that. There we go. Because they are widely known at the time of their creation and admired over following generations, in the process demonstrating literary merit and unparalleled popularity. Now, that was the criteria for the books that were in there. So I went to their opening reception, and I ate lots of very tiny food, which is my favorite thing to do in the entire world. And I also took a tour earlier today. So the Grolier people were very kind, and they actually sent along a couple slides of the things that they have on display. For example, as you can see here, this is 1658's Orbis Sensualium. Oh, Lord, my Latin is terrible. Pictus. Let's just call it Orbis Pictus because that's what everybody calls it. This is widely considered the very first children's picture book. Swear to you it's true. And wouldn't you just want to put this into the hands of a toddler today? Yes, they have one, honest to goodness, on display. It's very lovely. I, however, in my heart of hearts, was far more excited by this little puppy. Now, shameless plug, if you have read the book I co-wrote with Jules Danielson and Peter Cerruto, Wild Things, Acts of Mischief in Children's Literature, then you will know that this book plays a very big part. And this is, and I will butcher this because, as you can tell from my Latin, my German is no better, Struwwelpeter. Struble Pater, as seen here, translated to Shock-Headed Peter. It is a book by Heinrich Hoffmann, warning little children of various things. For example, do not play with matches or you will burn to death and your cats will cry over your ashes. Do cut your hair and cut your fingernails. If you don't, you will look like, as you can see. And do not suck your thumb. For the love of God, do not suck your thumb. You don't want to know who's going to come if you do. They have slightly more modern things as well. They have a very large selection of older things. I should say that the collection is mostly from the members of the Grolier. So the things that you're going to see in this exhibit, you're really not going to see anywhere else. This is a one-of-a-kind exhibit. They have, oh Lord, they have a copy of Alice in Wonderland with original hand-drawn, tipped-in illustrations by Tennell, the illustrator, and purple ink notations on the side by Lewis Carroll himself. This was his personal copy because he was going to make a younger reader edition of it, and he wanted to select certain pages to put in that younger reader edition. It's amazing. And of course, Nancy Drew. So they have things that are slightly more contemporary. You've got your Nancy Drew here, The Secret of the Old Clock. You've got Eric Carle's very own copy of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And you have this rather beat up copy of Harry Potter. And this absolutely, I was baffled by this because I have my own beat up paperback copy of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. They didn't think Americans would care for philosophers, and for all you know, they were right. And this, I do know this is the original book, but I couldn't figure out, look at this copy. You can see it's worn on the bottom. It's got an honest-to-goodness little sticker on the side. The edges are all battered. I couldn't figure out for the life of me why they put this copy on display until it was eventually explained to me that librarians generally get advanced reader copies of books. And for Harry Potter, somebody really believed in England. They really believed in this book, and they sent library edition, like you know, hardcover edition galleys to various libraries. I don't remember the exact number. I want to say 400, but maybe it was not even that many. But to certain libraries in the England area. And so these were like pre-publication copies. They were essentially galleys in the hopes of possibly, maybe appealing to the librarians out there, because otherwise, who on earth would have read this book? So this is one of those copies, and that is why it is one of the ones that is on display today. So there we go. One mild problem with the exhibit, I should note, is that it is very white. You will find Little Black Sambo, Brer Rabbit, and you will find The Snowy Day. 3 books that feature African Americans, no books by African Americans, no books by anyone of color at all. Now, I read to you at the beginning the description of how they decided on one book or another to include in there, and their belief that they needed things that were popular. And in fact, they did not really want to go beyond 1965, 1969 even, because they felt that anything more recent than that hadn't stood the test of time yet. So you had that to consider, and but they did have Harry Potter. And when I was on the tour, there was actually somebody there who was like, why was there Harry Potter? What was the decision that would put that on there? We don't even know it's going to be popular in another year. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Which I thought was rather hilarious, because I think Harry Potter is going to outlive, so many of us, I think. And no, that's right. And they were even like, literary merit. Does it have any? Grumble, grumble. So do check out the exhibit, because you will see things there that you will see nowhere else. You can buy the catalog if you've got a bit of money. And Christmas is coming up, so if you would like to get it, it is rather lovely. Well worth checking out. And as I say, it's only up until early February, so if you're in the city, you better get to that thing. And you better get to that thing mighty quick, because it's going to be going fairly soon. So that's that. Moving on. Today, our special guest comes to us thanks to the good people of Random House Children's Books. Random House Children's Books publishes quality hardcovers and paperbacks for preschool through young adult readers. You can visit their website and see all sorts of goodies. Now, today's guest is none other than one Jennifer Niven, who has written the lovely book that you see here, All the Bright Places. Quick bio for her. In 2000, author Jennifer Niven started writing full-time, and as of this moment in time, she has written at least 8 novels, possibly 9, contributes to the web magazine Germ, which may be the best name of a web magazine I have ever heard. She's a very talented writer. She knows the words to every ABBA song and has recently written the highly acclaimed book that you can see here, which will be officially released on January 6th. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So this is wonderful Google Hangout technology where every time one of us makes any slight noise, the camera will just shift over them super quickly. So I will attempt not to even cough or clear my throat while you're talking. So there we go. Just to start us off, can you tell us a little something about your book?
Yes, absolutely. It's a book that I like to say I've been writing it for some time, but I didn't know that I was writing it because it's inspired by a real story, at least by someone I knew in my life. And last year I was trying to decide what to write next. I was actually just finishing a book in a series of books that I've been writing, and I was ready for something kind of new creatively. And added to that, my literary agent of 15 years had died very unexpectedly. So I was looking for a new agent. I was trying very quickly to think of what to write. And I remember the last conversation that he and I had, which was, he was saying, you know, whatever you write next, I want it to be something you really want to write, that you want to write with all your heart. So I was really thinking about that, and I thought about this boy I loved and knew a long time ago. And it was a life-changing experience, and I'd always wanted to write about it. And last summer happened to be the time to write it.
All right. And how long did it take you to write?
It took about 6 weeks, which a record for me because it usually takes a lot longer. And this was the fastest I've ever written a book, but it just came out.
Wow, that's good. Now, I went to school in Indiana, and I was thrilled to see what this might indeed be an Indiana book. Is this an Indiana book?
It is an Indiana book. I grew up in Indiana.
Oh!
So I actually moved to Indiana in 4th grade, and I went to high school there, and so it's what I know, you know, in my bones. And I knew, I mean, there was no doubt in my mind I wanted to set it in Indiana.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. That makes me happy. Now, a lot of people have been comparing the title, and even in the slide that I showed there, to Eleanor and Park and some other realistic works of YA fiction. Now, how do you feel about that? Do you think that helps or hinders the book? How do you feel about it being compared to books of that sort? Do you think it's a fair comparison, or do you think it's just a little bit off?
I think it's, you know, it's an interesting question because I think there are good and bad things about that. I think that, you know, so many fans of Eleanor and Park, The Fault in Our Stars, they're so passionate about those books. And I think that there's a little bit of skepticism when they hear, as so many books are, compared to those 2 books in particular. And I think there's a little protectiveness too. So in that sense, I don't really like it as much, but I understand why the publisher did it because they're trying to let librarians and booksellers and readers know what kind of book it is without giving, you know, much away. Just it's a very quick way of doing that.
Yeah, and I can understand that. There is sometimes, especially with YA readers, this sort of feeling like, if I love this, I must only love this, and I cannot love anything that is even slightly like this. And oh, you're like this, you are wrong, you are no good. So there is that danger of having that sort of reader cling to the thing they already love rather than discover something new. So it can be problematic, that kind of marketing, sometimes. And sometimes it's really good read-alike recommendations to a certain extent. Now, there is another book, it was not this book, but there was another book, a middle grade book, that when it was sent around to the librarians, because they get these galleys, it was sent with a packet of tissues because this was going to be a weepy read. Your book, thank God, was not sent with a packet of tissues. However, it is considered a bawl your eyes out book, which a BYEO book. There you go. And so, what is the secret to getting an audience to cry?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think it's funny you mentioned the tissues, by the way, because I think actually my book could probably go out with some tissues. But I think the secret is just writing something that's real. And I think if it resonates with you in a deep personal place, it's going to it's going to do that with your readers. It's going to resonate with them as well. And I know when I was writing this, I cried some while I was writing it, and I think if you don't feel it, your readers aren't going to feel it. It's not going to be there. And I had a girl ask me recently, a young writer said, "How did you get through it without crying? Because I have a story I want to tell and I don't want to cry. But I want to make readers cry." And I said, "You've got to be able to cry to make your readers cry."
Oh, that's good advice. Yes, that's absolutely true. Um, Now, your mother was Penelope Niven, the author herself, and I was sorry to hear that she passed away recently. Now, what was her influence on you in terms of your career goals? Was she a writer when you were growing up, and did you look at her and think, I want to do this thing too?
She was a writer when I was growing up. She actually started working on her first book when I think I was about 10, maybe. So she had put aside writing dreams for a while to raise me. I'm an only child. And it was wonderful because once she started writing, she would write at her big desk and I would write at my little one. And she taught me to see the story in everything. And I'm just so grateful for that because she never pushed me to be a writer. If anything, she said, "This is how stressful it can be. This is how difficult it can be. You have to love it so much you want to do it in spite of those things." But the thing she always taught me was that I could be or do anything I wanted to be or do. And so in that way, she's been a huge influence. And then she was my mentor, but she was also my partner in that we would always share work and edit each other's work. And it was wonderful to have that.
That's great. And now, did you find yourself going towards subjects that she would write about that were similar, or did you want to go in an entirely different direction from what she was writing?
I wanted to go in an entirely different direction. My mom wrote mostly literary biography, major books that are, huge and long and take years and years and years of research to write. I, while I admired it and loved reading her books, I wanted to do something very different. And I also wanted to find my own agent, and I wanted to do it all on my own without any connections that she had. So our tastes were very different. We're also very different writers in terms of our styles, but we respected and admired each other's work so much.
That's great. Now, part of the promotion for this book has involved asking folks where their bright place is. This ties into the book very directly. I suspect it changes from person to person. What's your own bright place?
Oh, it's a lovely question. There are so many, but I would have to say, if I'm choosing just one, home.
That's a good answer. Um, well, honestly, I just have one last question for you, and it's the dreaded question, and I always feel bad when I ask it, but I'm always really curious about it. So, what are you working on right now?
Oh, the dreaded question. And I'm happy to answer it. I'm actually working on my second YA book, which I'm very excited to be doing. I love the world of YA, and I don't want to leave it. It is about, I can tell you this much, it's about a boy who cannot recognize faces.
Oh, face blindness. What a good idea.
Yes, and a girl who is very visible but feels very invisible.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, what a good idea. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think I've trying to think I've seen any books that talk about face blindness, and I don't know that I can think of any.
There
I
are
don't
not that many, but
know.
It's such a fascinating subject.
Yeah, I even know authors that have it, which is tricky when you're an author for children or for teens because you meet a lot of the same people over and over, and it's really difficult. So, oh,
Be very challenging.
yeah, I would think so. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so nice having you. And I should just mention to folks that All the Bright Places, once again, is coming out very early in the year. So y'all should take a look for that. Meantime, thank you so much for coming over here to watch some Fuse 8 TV. It is, of course, presented by School Library Journal. And of course, if you would like, you can always get a little School Library Journal on your iPad, if you like. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, all our archived episodes are available on fuse8tv.com. So thank you so much, folks. And hopefully, I will see you here another time. Cheers.